Welcome to The Explainer. I am so absolutely thrilled you're hanging out with me today because, let's face it, we're diving into something that affects literally every single one of us. We are going to unpack the fascinating science of bouncing back. We're taking a journey from that crushing weight of daily stress, you know the feeling, all the way to mastering the really deep biological and psychological science of lifelong resilience. We've got some incredible source material to guide us today, so get ready to figure out how to actively build up your mental muscle.
Okay, picture this. Have you ever been lying in bed, just staring at the ceiling, replaying some incredibly awkward conversation you had with a barista at 2 a.m.? Or maybe you're sitting at your desk, your inbox is already overflowing, you get just one more urgent message marked ASAP, and suddenly, boom, sheer panic sets in. It's such a universally relatable problem, right? Anxiety just doesn't always announce itself. It kind of just sneaks in through the back door. And man, when it sneaks in, you feel it physically way before your logical brain even registers what's going on. The chest tightens, the mind starts racing, the spiral begins. It is this intense, visceral fight or flight sensation. Out of nowhere, anxiety just completely hijacks our thoughts, and suddenly the absolute smallest tasks, like, just replying to an email, feel completely impossible, like there's just no room to even breathe.
Section 1. The anxiety spiral, interrupting the chaos. Okay, let's dive into this because actually understanding what happens during that crazy overwhelm is step 1 to beating it. When we get swept up in those racing thoughts, our nervous system completely goes into overdrive. We just start reacting on pure autopilot, which honestly usually just makes the whole spiral spin faster and faster.
Which brings us to Section 2, the STOP technique, mindful circuit breaker. Even right in the middle of all that chaos, there is a way to hit the brakes. It's an immediate, highly actionable solution, and the best part? It requires absolutely zero special training. Let's break down exactly how this works.
The true beauty of this framework is just how simple it is. Step 1, literally, stop. Just pause whatever you're doing, even for a single beat. Step 2, take a breath. Deliberately shift your focus to a slow, deep inhale and exhale just to cool the engines down. Step 3, observe. What's happening inside you? Maybe your chest is tight. What's going on around you? Just notice it without judging it. And finally, step 4, proceed. Now you get to decide what to do next. This tiny, brief pause is a real game changer because it allows us to step forward with actual intention rather than just reacting defensively on autopilot.
And the benefits of this tiny little pause? Absolutely profound. Practicing stop literally interrupts your body's fight or flight response. It acts like a giant reset button. It clears our thinking by breaking up those mental spirals, it regulates our emotional steadiness, and honestly, it's just a profound act of self-kindness. But here is the most important takeaway for our journey today. Making this a regular micro-habit actively builds up your long-term resilience.
Now, I really want to be clear here. This isn't just some trendy internet life hack. The STOP technique is a proven, hardcore, evidence-based tool rooted in established behavioral therapies. We're talking cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. It's actively taught as a distress tolerance tool, meaning it's specifically designed to help you literally tolerate intense emotional distress without making the situation any worse. It grounds you right here in the present moment.
Section 3, psychological resilience, building mental muscle. So we've got this incredible micro tool, right? But how does all of this scale up? Let's pivot and look at the macro level. Because these little micro moments of emotional regulation, they are actively building a much larger psychological muscle over time. They are the foundational building blocks of something much, much grander.
Psychological resilience is formally defined as the ability to cope mentally with a crisis and return to a pre-crisis status quickly. Now, I want to break this down because this is absolutely crucial. Resilience is not about completely avoiding stress. In fact, the research tells us that navigating everyday routine stressors actually helps promote resilience. It's not about living a life totally free of trauma. It's about positive adaptation when trauma inevitably happens.
Now, what's really interesting here is how researcher Anne Maston describes this. She calls resilience ordinary magic, I absolutely love that phrasing. Resilience isn't some rare mythical superpower granted to a lucky few. No way. It is a completely natural human adaptive system, shaped by millions of years of biological and cultural evolution. It's ordinary, sure, but its effects? Pure magic.
So let's trace how we actually discovered this magic. The first real research on this kicked off back in the 1970s with psychologist Emmy Werner. She started this groundbreaking 40-year longitudinal study in Kauai, Hawaii. By the 1980s, resilience had really emerged as a major research topic, especially when looking at kids facing severe adversity. And over the decades, the scientific focus shifted. We stopped seeing resilience as just some fixed personality trait you're born with and started understanding it as a dynamic process, something we can actively build.
The most crucial takeaway from Emmy Werner's Kauai study really comes down to this fraction right here, 1/3. Werner was studying children growing up in severe poverty with significant family adversity, and she found that roughly 1/3 of these highly at-risk youths didn't go down a destructive path. Instead, they developed into highly well-adjusted adults. Why? Because they had what researchers call protective factors in their personalities and their environments. In other words, they had that ordinary magic.
Section 4. The Science of Resilience. Biology of Bouncing Back. So what exactly makes up those protective factors? Let's move from the history into the biology and eagerly transition into the fascinating biological and cultural mechanisms that actually fuel our ability to recover. Because let me tell you, the science of bouncing back goes really, really deep. Believe it or not, our brains naturally use biological armor to combat stress. We have neurotransmitters like dopamine acting as these primary buffers. When we cope well with something, we actually see increased activation in the prefrontal cortex and even structural changes in the hippocampus. And incredibly, research indicates that resilience is even influenced by epigenetic modifications. That means our successful adaptations can literally change how our genes are expressed. How wild is that?
Oh, and here is a totally surprising fact from the research that I just had to share. Finding ways to elicit positive emotions, specifically humor, actually has real, measurable physiological consequences. Finding something funny leads to improvements in immune system functioning and literally increases vital antibodies in our saliva. So a good laugh is literally defending your body on a cellular level.
And this brilliantly illustrates that resilience isn't just a biological thing, it's a cultural thing too. Individualist cultures tend to bounce back by focusing heavily on self-reliance, personal traits, and independence. Collectivist cultures, on the other hand, emphasize pooling resources, maintaining community harmony, and relying on deep social support networks. And research on natural disasters shows us that both of these approaches have really unique strengths. There is absolutely no single right way to bounce back.
Section 5. Building long-term resilience. Developing the process. Okay, so knowing the biology and the cultural variations, how do we actively develop and sustain our own resilience over a whole lifetime? How do we construct those essential protective factors for ourselves and for our communities?
Well, resilience building can come from surprisingly specific places. Take this fascinating case study. Research by the British Council found an incredibly powerful relationship between language learning and resilience, particularly for refugees who are integrating into new host communities. Just the act of learning and communicating in a new language provides profound protective factors. It develops a shared identity, opens up access to education, builds social cohesion, and critically, gives people the vocabulary and the tools to articulate and address their trauma. So let's bring all this amazing macro science full circle right back to the STOP technique we started with. Remember step 4 of STOP? Proceed. Building lifelong resilience, whether that means learning a whole new language, processing deep trauma, or literally just handling a completely overflowing inbox on a Monday morning, starts with breaking overwhelming challenges down. Don't focus on finish the massive project, just focus on open the document. Hit STO, take a breath, and choose your next tiny, manageable move today.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Think about the very next time you feel that sudden chest tightness and you feel that familiar anxiety sneak in. How will you reframe it? Are you going to let the autopilot take over? Or will you use the STOP technique, activate your prefrontal cortex, lean on your social support system, and embrace your own ordinary magic? The power to bounce back is already right there inside you. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer.